I would say absolutely guided by the priorities of those countries that are aligned with the African Union and with these countries. As my brother, the High Commissioner of Nigeria, said, one of the things requested is foreign direct investment, which I think you've criticized in some way. Other thing is cooperation in peace and security, for instance, in Cabo Delgado, which I think I've heard that you've also critical of that. It's done at the request of these countries. So my question is, what would you do differently, and what would be your relationship with the European Union once you become president? What would you change? What would you think we should do differently? And what would you put on the table also as a value proposition for the European Union? Because as you said, we all defend our own national interests. That is something that all diplomats do. So what would you propose to the European Union differently from the value proposition of Africa today, South Africa and Africa? And what would you request from us? How would South Africa's policy towards the EU be different? Also regarding trade, for instance, the preferential trade agreements, TDCA or AGOA with the US, would you change that? Thank you.
The same thing with the European Union. Don't say, what are we going to ask from you? That's a big brother mentality. What are you going to ask from us? Yes, don't say, why should it be us who are asking? We're not asking for anything. We're fine. So let's relate as equals, not as a beggar and the big brother supplier. No, we will relate with the European Union. It's a necessary body. We'll relate with it, we'll respect it, and the respect must be mutual, and will engage on what is in the interest of our countries, not what is in the interest of the European Union. We're in a mess now. We've decommissioned our power stations because countries like the USA, like the UK have said to us, no, do away with these things. We are going to introduce green energy. Here's the money and all of that. People took the money. There is no electricity today. So we ought to relate as equals so that no one imposes their ideas on us. We are people that subscribe to superior logic. Anything that is scientific, anything that has been proven, anything that makes sense, we'll agree with it. It doesn't matter whether it comes from European Union or it comes from BRICS or it comes from China or Russia. No, we will not agree with anything that seeks to belittle us and make us look like we are beggars in this kind of a relationship. So that's the same with AGOA. You can't use AGOA to threaten us in terms of our sovereignty and our foreign policy. That if you are going to bring Putin here and not defy, will do away with AGOA. You can do away with AGOA. We remain with our sovereignty. Should you strip us of our dignity because we are desperately looking for AGOA? That our foreign policy is now determined somewhere else. Which nation can be proud of that? That our foreign policy is determined somewhere because we are beneficiaries of AGOA. It can't be correct. Let's trade and have those benefits of AGOA out of mutual understanding and respect for each other's sovereignty and foreign policy. Not that today, because we don't agree on Putin, you must withdraw the whole thing. That is puppeting, that is belittling, that is making us look like we are beggars. But let's remain with our dignity. Let's be beggars with dignity, not stripped of dignity and thinking that you are what you are not. You can't even make your own foreign policy determinations because AGOA will be taken away.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. My name is Dash Lifestyle. Kindly for watching me for the first time, remember to subscribe, like, share, and also comment. So guys, in today's video, I want us to watch this video from our African leaders. They have come out and sent a warning message to the Western countries, and also they have sent a message to all puppet, corrupt African and Caribbean leaders to change, to wake up, because revolution, it has started. Africans, they are waking up. Africans, they are uniting. So this message, it is to all African and Caribbean leaders. So kindly guys, watch this video till the end. Then I'll be back with more comment.
I often hear young people today. Last night I was invited by a friend of mine who is from Ghana and he's in South Africa as well. So we went out for some dinner, spent some time with some young people. And I often hear young people today say things like this. You know, it's time for young people to rise. It's time for the old people to move out of the way. It's time, it's time, it's time. Let me tell you, young people, there is no old person going anywhere. If you want that seat in that office, in that boardroom, in that chamber, in that ministry, you're going to have to fight for it, because power isn't given, it's taken. And so the question as our continent rises is, will we be men and women of courage? Will we be the generation in 50 years' time that our children reference and say, they did it right? They had the template for how to truly pull out of each other the ability to work with each other. And something fascinating is happening today. I must tell you this. This is the good news. The good news is that we're no longer separated. The good news is that we find each other. The good news is that in this room, there are people who are following Vusi Thembekwayo on Instagram. I know I'm very good looking on Instagram, I must tell you, I am very good looking on Instagram. But the good news is that even I have the privilege of following a Professor Lumumba's work. No matter where in the world I find myself, where there are Africans who are speaking, leading, evangelizing, and growing others, we now have the ability to find each other. The true question is, will we have the ability to build with each other? You see, to date, our building strategies all center on these borders that were drawn for us and not by us. And so it becomes the question of, is your nation thriving versus mine? I had this conversation with a friend of mine who also works in capital markets like me in South Africa. I said, I'm really confused by this feud we have with Nigeria. I genuinely don't understand it. Why do we constantly migrate to the global north, and South Africa tries to posture against Nigeria and Nigeria against South Africans? What's the game here? What's the gambit? Whom is it that we're trying to please, and against whom are we trying to please them? Because each time we find our leaders playing that game, the question perhaps we should ask is, who is the master you're trying to please? In this moment and in this season, I think as a generation, we are called to truly understand what it's going to take, one and all, to work with each other, but to build with each other. One of the things in my mind that's missing in this season is a patriotic, flag-bearing, strong group, not only of men and women, but of Nigerians, who understand in the African context what Nigeria is. With the greatest of respect, I think in large part, the average is so distracted by internally what's going on, you're missing who you are in the global context of your continent. You're too worried about what's being said, or who's japaying, or who won the elections, or what's next, without thinking consciously about what you could do as an economy if Nigeria decided we're going to set the path for the rest of the region. As a consequence of this, absent of leadership, what happens? Everything that we have been seeing. And so the question for this moment, for each and every single one of us, is, will we be the courageous men and women who recognize the season we are in? I'm not sure how many of us have traveled to my country of South Africa. Any of you here? Hands up. When you do, and I hope for all of you that you do, which, by the way, side note, a conversation we must have, and Brother Pojo, I don't know how we do this. We need to convene the leaders of this continent to talk about this visa story. This is a disaster. And let me just say the following. I struggle to understand why I can land in Paris, get on a train, and end up in Brussels. But if I want to move from Joburg to Gaborone, I must produce a passport. Who's the genius that came up with the scheme? You know, the Europeans are so quick to tell us that we can't bundle ourselves into a single block, but they've done it. When you publish this, you must just leave that part out because I'm busy raising money from them. I don't know. They're going to say he's too radical. And so, even in my own native land of South Africa, the work as South Africans we must do is to conscientize each other about the continent. In my mind, and I was listening to your comments, ma'am, about the youth service, I'm seized to understand and failing to understand why we are not deliberately sending young people into other parts of the continent. Experience the culture, live with the people. To come here, to be here in this beautiful country, I had to go through Ethiopia. From Ethiopia, I was in Zambia. So I went South Africa, Zambia, Ethiopia, Nigeria. Between now and December, I'm going to be in about 8 different African countries. In that same time, it's going to be easier for me to do 5 different countries in Europe than it will be to do 2 different countries in Africa. Less layovers, less time. I'm sorry, can we just pause? Just one moment, pause the time. Who designed this nonsense? Who wrote the script? I have a theory. And here is my theory. You only lock the vault where there is money. And so maybe there's a reason you've been kept out of that neighboring country. Maybe there's a reason you've been kept out of that neighboring region. Maybe there's a reason you can't travel to that other place. Because if you were to, there is something you might do that would help us build what we all know we are capable of. So first, keep them away from each other. Second, convince them that they're enemies with each other. And third, convince them that the other one is better than the other one. And before you're done, they will hate each other so much you don't even need to pass policy or law. And in the middle of all of this, here we sit as young people, fruitfully connected by the HTTPS. And we're more worried about what's trending and commenting on it, rather than how do we meaningfully build with each other and do business. I came to tell you here today that I'm only interested in meaningfully building and doing business. I'm only interested in understanding how do we take the platform and put it in Johannesburg or put it in Cape Town. And how do we have not just this conversation here, but that conversation there? Because until and when Africa truly is of a single mind, it will continue to be the fodder and the meal for the rest of the global average. I don't know about you, but I would like a world slightly different for my children than the one I grew up in. So we must recognize then that our value to the world is cemented. And recognize beyond that, that even that very idea of what it is that is our value is changing. A week ago, I was in East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. Today, I'm here. I make it my intention to travel the continent. Because, and on this point I will end with this. You see, it's easy for a politician to lie to you about Pan-Africanism when you've never traveled Africa. They can tell you their version of it because they've never been there. They will tell you how Africans speak even though they've never been there. Which, side note, why do Nigerians add O to everything? I'm sat at dinner last night, and this young man I'm with said something so profound. I was like, wow, that's so good. He said, please don't take my words, oh.
We need to strengthen AU, give it more teeth to bite. The decisions of the AU must be taken, and they must be firmly implemented by countries of Africa if we are going to say this is a serious continental body. Business has no choice. We're the only organization that is very clear of what we want. And therefore, business in dealing with the EFF, they know what they're dealing with. Policy position is very clear. And we're happy with the response yesterday. It was overwhelming. We really enjoyed ourselves. And the kind of support we received from the South African business yesterday was really welcomed. Black, white, Indians, Africans, coloreds, all manner of business, men and women were there to support the EFF. And that's what made the rally possible tomorrow, because of the support of these business people who are not scared of the establishment. Ukraine peaceful solution is that Ukraine must not join NATO. That's the solution. So that we protect the territory. I mean, Russia doesn't feel threatened. It's as simple as that. And I sympathize with you, and I like the fact that you like dialogue, and I like dialogue and engage about that, because NATO is not a very peaceful organization. You can't talk peace and NATO in one sentence. It's not true what you are saying, because what peace did NATO take to Libya? Look at what you did to Libya to date. Because you are going after one man, you destroy the whole country. So if it brought peace in Norway, it has not brought peace in Africa. And our experience with NATO is not what you have experienced. And therefore, we respectfully disagree with that. I agree with you that elections are coming and South Africa must play an important role. There's a problem in Zimbabwe. There's a big problem in Zimbabwe where the rights of citizens are being violated openly, and no one is saying anything about it, including South Africa. Elections get stolen daylight by the army. For sure, they have the results by now. Me and you are still talking about elections. They are done. They have the results. Those things, that's a formality. Well, it can't be correct that ZANU-PF holds the people of Zimbabwe hostage. If it means ZANU-PF must lose elections for it to go and self-correct, so be it. But let the people, the voice of the people of Zimbabwe be respected. It can't be a win-win-win at all costs. In the EFF, we believe strongly that Chamisa won the last elections. And he was undermined by violence that was unleashed on citizens of Zimbabwe. But is the sanctions solution? No. No. The Zimbabweans are suffering as we speak. You know how you negotiate the best terms as business and as countries. Zimbabwe should be open to you to go and invest there, but negotiate the best deals and conditions of such investment. No sanctions must stop you from going to invest in Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans are struggling, and the world must go and help Zimbabweans. You know, this thing of territorial threats, we know them here. We've got an army base here in Botswana. What is America doing here in Botswana? Why is Africa not in American borders? What do you call that? And you come and say imperialism and colonialism is finished. When people expand their territorial expansion through putting military bases at our borders. There's a military base here. A study has been conducted that a fighter jet that moves from that army base to the Union building will not take less than 2 minutes to bomb the Union building. If a war is declared with America, America does not have to assemble any resource from Washington or anywhere else to come here They are already here. What do you call that? It's democracy. It's free wealth. We must celebrate that and say, no, imperialism is no longer there. It's in our head. We understand what Putin is fighting against because we have it here. Here. What is it doing here? We never went to Asia. We never went to Europe. We never went to America. We are here. We don't establish bases anywhere. Why should you establish bases in military bases in our continent? And when we speak, it's called old-fashioned politics. That they are out of fashion. There's no such a thing as imperialism. When imperialism is breathing on our neck, yeah, we're not going to allow that. We are going to expose that American military base here all the time in the platforms we get and educate our people that this is exactly what Putin is fighting against. America will not allow that. That Russia must go and establish a military base in Cuba with missiles facing the USA. They won't allow that. So we must not be allowed, we must not be asked to accept the things that you will not accept if they were to happen in your countries. And that's what we're talking about when we speak about NATO and peace not going together. So, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't mean enmity. We're not enemies. We engage robustly. Our policies can be challenged the same way we challenge your policies. We are open for engagement. South Africa is open for investment in our own terms. We know what multinational companies have done to our economy, coming to milk our resources, leaving us dry. The case in point is a place called Marikana. Just go and see what the London mine did there and what Sibanye is doing there. To date, with a huge operation of a mine just next to it, there is no water, there's no tar road, there's no electricity, there are no houses, no proper schools. People are squashed in one place. Yet, a stone thrown away, there is a mine. We cannot allow that to continue as is under the EFF. We want a mine that will benefit our people. Why do people say, no, the state must not own a bank in South Africa? Because there are private banks. Why do you need a state bank? Because they want to continue to exploit people and charge them high interest. Why do you say you don't want the state to be in the bank, but the state is in hospitals? There is private hospitals, there is state hospitals. There is private schools, there is state schools. There must be private banks and state banks. And the private bank, the private hospitals and schools and private everything, even where the state participate, the private sector still maximize profit, even when there is an option of a state. We will not close them down under the EFF. We'll do what Kenya did. We'll not close private schools. We'll build quality public education where people will abandon private schools and go to public schools like in Kenya, where Kenyans leave private schools because public education is better. That's what we need to do. Private schools are closing in Kenya. So we will not close any mine. Why should we close a mine? We are the ones who issue the licenses of mines. We will give a license of a profitable mine to the state-owned mining company, where mining will not cost the state a lot of money, where the mineral resource is close. You don't need many resources and money to produce the product. That license shall go to the state, because we're the ones who allocate the license. Why should you close the mine? That's what nationalization means. means a state-owned mining company will be established and shall mine next to the American mining companies. Won't close them down, but will mine in such a way that they will not see a need to continue mining, because the state will be doing so well and will crush corruption. The biggest problem is corruption, and the Chinese have dealt with it and dealt with it decisively. You steal money of ARVs, money that must go to people who are HIV positive, by go and buy medication for people who are HIV positive. You steal that money, and as a result, a lot of people die. Why should you be alive after killing people? You deliberately killed people. You knew when you don't give them that medication, they're going to die. What happens? What are the consequences there? You don't get killed, you don't get imprisoned, yet a lot of people have died. Everybody has concerted that ESCOM collapsed because of corruption. But we don't know who's corrupt till to date. But they know there is corruption. Corruption. ESCOM collapsed. And as a result, oxygen machines in hospitals switched off and people died. So you are not just corrupt, you are a murderer. So they are saying corruption, they don't refer to them as murderers. They are murderers. They killed people. Yet not a single one of them has been arrested. Society has got no problem of corruption. They want you to deal with it decisive. Then they know there are consequences. They will run away from corruption. So that's the kind of leadership we'll introduce in this country, where we deal decisively with things that are not beneficial to the people of South Africa. But we're internationalists in outlook. There's no way we can exist in isolation. We need you for us to survive. And that's why we are open for an engagement. No country can exist in isolation. We need friends. And those friends is all of you who are in this hall. We might disagree on this or that, but what brings us together is humanity. We want to see humanity succeed, and that's what makes us friends. And the door of the EFF remains open for bilateral engagements with individual embassies who seek more clarity. We're there. Our international relations office is here. Tomorrow we're in a rally. After the rally tomorrow, things are back to normal. At any day, whether it's USA or Germany or UK or Zimbabwe or China or Russia, anyone who seeks to engage us, our door is open. Please, let's come and engage further on many other issues. This is a big platform where we may not go into some of the details, but in that kind of an engagement, Dean, I think it will be better to engage more, especially that you represent the continent of Africa.
So guys, I hope you have watched that powerful speech from one of our African leader. He's known as Julius Malema. Julius Malema is one of the African leaders coming from South Africa, and Julius Malema, he has come out and highlight some of the things that the Western countries they are doing to the African country, like the country that he has mentioned about Namibia. He is talking about how the Western countries they are destabilizing some of the African countries, and also he has sent a message to all African and Caribbean puppet and corrupt leaders to change, because he has talked so much about election. And I know in some of our African countries and some of our Caribbean countries, like in Jamaica, they are heading to do election. And when these people they are doing election with the black election, majority of our black African countries, they are having problems when it comes to election, because these leaders who they want to be elected, they are usually come out and promise a lot of things to the black people. They are saying that they are going to improve the livelihood of their citizen. Things the cost of living, it is going to fall down, and also they are going to protect the country. But when these people they are getting they are now getting to power, we have seen that these people they usually put their family first. These people they fly out their family to go they fly out their family to live in abroad. And also these people they always think about how these people they are going to gain more health, how these leaders they are going to gain more health while they are still in power. So this is a problem that we as African we have been having with our leaders. Majority of our leaders they don't want to work according to the will of the people. Majority of them, when it comes to election, the only thing that these people they want it is to be in power. And after being in power, they're now starting selling out our resources. They're now starting selling out our country. They are now becoming puppet to the Western country. So Julius Malema, he has sent a tough response to this journalism from the Western country, whereby he was asking if Julius Malema he has got power, if he will consider the Western country. But Julius Malema he has come out and say, why are you guys always thinking about your country? For us, we want to see our country first being stable, and then we can start seeing your country. But this guy, they always want to convince the leaders who wants to get to power to work for them. This is how these people they usually start, and that's why I've come out and sent this message to all African and Caribbean puppet and corrupt leaders to change, because right now revolution it has started. Majority of us black people we are start seeing those leaders who they are still puppet. We want to bring down those leaders who they are still selling out our country to the Western countries, because right now as black people we are really tired of these Western countries. We have seen how these Western countries they have damaged our African and black countries in the Caribbean, and right now these people they are not going to stop. They still want to see these black countries not growing. They all want to destabilize our black countries. That's why during election these people that are the first one to go and support these leaders in their parties. Yeah, these people that are always being funded with the Western countries. When these leaders they are doing their election, when these people they are campaigning, the highest numbers of funds it is usually come out from the Western countries, because these Western countries they are funding them to do the campaign. After funding them to do the campaign, after these leaders they have get into power, they're now turning them to be puppet, because these leaders they were supported, they were being sponsored by the Western countries. So after getting the seat, they want also the Western countries they want also to regain their money back. So they usually make these leaders to become a puppet. They usually make these leaders to become a sellout leaders, and that's why we are still having problems with our leaders. Yeah, our leaders, we are still having problem up to now, because these people, they have been a sellout. They have been taking a lot of resources from here in Africa and some black countries in the Caribbean. And because of that, I really love Julius Malema, because he's that one of our African leaders. He has no fear to the Western countries. I know the Western countries, they have tried to bring Julius Malema down because of what he is always doing, because Julius Malema is fighting the rights of the black people. He is kicking out the Western countries from here in our African, because he's one of our African leaders that he usually tell the Western countries that you need to get out of our country. You need to move out of our country. You need to stop destabilizing our country. And because of that, I always bring Julius Malema to this channel. So kindly guys, subscribe if you haven't, like this video, share, and also comment. See you on my next one. Bye bye.